All right, what's up guys? Long time no see. I'm not really sure how to start this video. I have a bit of a script written out here to try to keep me on track. For those of you who follow the channel, you know that I tend to ramble and get off track. So hopefully this will kind of keep things on course a little bit. So yeah, I'm just gonna get right into it. I just wanted to make this video to show people who may also be going through a similar situation, just that they're not alone. And I know that when I was going through the worst of it, it was very helpful to see some other people sharing their experience and just kind of like helping me, just giving me context, I guess validating the way I was feeling a little bit. That all sounds really corny and kind of cliche, but it's true. When I was going through it, I was like, you know, seeing other people talk about it, I was like, okay, so I'm not crazy. So yeah, I want to start this video off by saying that I'm not anti-SSRI or anti-antidepressant. I know a lot of people out there are very much like all antidepressants are bad, all SSRIs are bad, you know, you should never take them, blah, blah, blah. I do think that they are overprescribed. I do think they are applied to situations that probably not appropriate for. And I do think a lot of people probably use them as a crutch or as kind of a hack instead of addressing issues that need to be addressed, doing the work per se. But with that being said, mine probably saved my life. That does sound, you know, like, again, really serious or profound. I don't mean it to be that way. It's just kind of matter of fact. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of preface this video by saying that. This isn't propaganda. This is just kind of my opinion. Also, I should probably say none of this video is medical advice. I'm not a medically trained doctor. But yeah, I'm not, you know, trying to spread any propaganda or anything like that. I'm just sharing my experience. And giving you guys a little bit of an update. So I have had a lot of people ask me about this, my experience, because I mentioned it a couple times on my Instagram story. So I've had a lot of people kind of asking like for a follow-up or an update. And I just want to give you guys some context for kind of where I've been the last little bit. And even before that, just like giving you some context for why I have been the way that I've been in some of my videos and that kind of thing. So as the title of this video suggests, this video is going to be about my experience with taking antidepressants. I was on an SSRI. There's a couple different types of antidepressants, but I was on an SSRI specifically called Lexapro or escitalopram. I think there's another third name for it as well that I can't remember, but I was on that for 2.5 years. And then in April of last year, I tapered off of it in about a month. So I took my last dose of it in May sometime. So I've been fully off of it for about a year now. So this video is just about my experience with taking that medication and then more specifically the prolonged withdrawal after I stopped taking it. So yeah, I'm just gonna explain a little bit of a brief timeline. If you'll go back throughout my channel, you'll see in a number of videos me kind of discussing like a mysterious fatigue issue. I was just always tired. You know, I wasn't really progressing with training, feeling very unmotivated, which is unlike me, that kind of stuff. And if you watch a lot of my older videos, you'll see that I had to deload from training all the time. I was always talking about like having to deload or having just finished a deload or that kind of thing. So this is basically the explanation behind all of that. And then an update for those of you who have been following my mental health journey on my other social media platforms. Just to kind of give you context from the very beginning, I've never had mental health issues growing up. You know, I was very, you know, candidly, I would say I was a pretty emotionally intelligent person. I have a very strong support system, great relationship with my parents, my family, great friends, very strong friendships. You know, I was not even really a nervous kid growing up. You know, I would get super nervous for like sports tryouts and things like that. And I was definitely hyper aware of like social dynamics and things like that, but I wasn't like, you know, socially awkward or anything like that. And then in 2019, I basically had a seemingly random mental health anxiety episode that lasted like 6 months. And like I said, I'd never had abnormal levels of anxiety otherwise. Obviously the normal nervousness of like going on a date with a girl or doing a class presentation. But I was actually the stereotypical like douche jock in high school, especially toward the later years of high school, grade 11 and 12. So most people would never have even known that I got nervous about anything. And then out of nowhere in 2019, I was hit with such bad anxiety, and I literally mean out of nowhere, that I couldn't function. It was the summer between my 3rd and 4th year of university, and it wasn't related to anything specific. Sometimes it would be related to health, so I definitely consider myself a little bit of a hypochondriac, but I just like had this insane anxiety. And I don't mean like, you know, social anxiety or nervousness, or I mean like, I would call it terror. Like the way that I would describe it is like every day I would wake up. The only relief I ever got from it was when I was sleeping. The way I describe it is just every day I would wake up and it would be as if somebody told me you're gonna die in the next 24 hours, but you don't know how or when. Like that kind of terror. Like it was just crazy. Or like maybe, you know, someone calls you and they're like, yo, we just found your family's vehicle in a car wreck. There's nothing left of the car. We don't know who was in the car. We'll let you know when we figure out who it was. You know what I mean? Like that kind of just gut-wrenching terror. That was between third and fourth university. I had to stop training. I quit my job. I almost dropped out of school. I almost quit football. It was just a constant state of terror. And like I said, it wasn't really rooted in any specific thing for most of the time. After 6 months of trying to take care of myself the best I could by doing the behavioral stuff like light exercise, getting sunlight, staying on a good diet, spending time with family and friends, distracting myself, meditating, speaking to a doctor and a couple of other professionals, I finally decided to take an SSRI because I was like, fuck this. I cannot handle any more of this. I just need to regroup and get my life back together. And I tried all the other things before. I kind of did my due diligence, right? It wasn't like the drug was my first stop. So I started at 10 milligrams once per day. This is Lexapro. And then after a month, I didn't really notice much improvement. So my doctor upped me to 20 milligrams per day. It fixed my anxiety. So like I said earlier, if I knew that's what my life was going to be like forever, probably wouldn't have lasted very long. So the medication really did solve the problem. Now, initially there were no issues other than I was having trouble recovering from training despite taking very good care of myself in terms of sleep, exercise, diet, etc. Those of you who have been following me for a long time know that I'm very dialed. I just thought I had a very low volume tolerance as hard workouts would hit me harder than they used to, and I had to get really precise with programming to see any type of progress in terms of progressive overload. It was a very slow progression, so I didn't realize it while it was happening, but eventually after about 2 years of being on the medication, it got so bad that I couldn't really train at all without feeling absolutely smoked for days afterward. Like a really, really bad hangover, but just minus like the stomach part, which is actually why I ended up losing a lot of muscle on my last cut. I just couldn't train enough to keep the muscle on. Like obviously you have to do a certain amount of volume in order to maintain muscle. So I didn't really realize it at the time. I kind of thought like, oh man, I'm losing muscle on this cut. But I also know that like everyone gets in their head when they're on a cut like that. So I was like, that's probably all that it is. But no, in reality, looking back, I definitely just couldn't train enough to keep the amount of muscle on me that I had earned through or built through my bulk. Anyway, training was probably the least of my concerns at that point anyway, because even without training, I was just so tired all the time. I couldn't think clearly at all. I was so depressed and down all the time, super unmotivated. I just didn't enjoy doing anything anymore, and I didn't care about anything anymore. So like all the things I used to kind of get a kick out of and enjoy doing, I just didn't enjoy doing, and nothing made me excited anymore. I didn't care about anything anymore. I was very just like, it was a really shitty existence. I was barely feeling emotions in general, you know, things that other people would get super fired up about, I just could not have given less of a fuck about. So, and on the contrary, I used to be very energetic and disciplined and motivated. I mean, that's obviously how I got to where I am now, with respect to my business, my social media presence, my, you know, physique and physical development, you know, making a living doing what I love. But over time, I had become very unmotivated, lazy, depressed, and I was always, like I said, so fucking exhausted. And that was the biggest thing. Like I could sleep well, like sleep through the night, sleep well for 8 to 9 hours per night, sometimes 10 or 11, and wake up, drink 2 coffees, which is, you know, normal. I had an espresso coffee machine. I would drink 2 of those coffees, and then I'd fall asleep like by accident 2 hours after waking up and having drank 2 coffees in those 2 hours, which is, I know some people can do that sometimes, but I had to think, especially for me, that's not fucking normal. And I know some people, caffeine has no effect, but I'm not one of those people. Caffeine has always worked well for me for boosting my mood and energy, and I'm also very careful to keep my caffeine tolerance from getting too high. So I knew that that wasn't a factor at that time either. So I didn't know what the problem was, but then I realized there was definitely something not normal going on. Took 6 weeks off from training to see if it was just a fatigue issue from training for so long without like really taking time off from the gym entirely. During that time, I got tons of blood work, saw several docs and specialists, did a hormone test, you know, the whole 9 yards. All of my tests came back healthy and normal, and I was already eating perfectly, sleeping well, exercising a healthy amount, you know, not too much, getting walks, like, you know, I was only training, I think 4 days a week, and it wasn't like they were super extremely long sessions. Like I wasn't training like Olympic athlete amount, right? So at that point, that was when I started to think, okay, I've checked off every other box. Maybe it is my SSRI medication, and that was the only variable that was kind of out of the ordinary per se at that time. And so I thought that that might have been the root cause. So I started looking into it, and I very quickly came across a few things online talking about how Lexapro, which is what I was taking, can cause extreme chronic fatigue, and how a lot of people had to switch off or come off of it entirely for that reason. It's not a known or official side effect of Lexapro, but that was what I had seen online. It was an anecdote. People were saying, much like me, they'd been getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep, they'd drink caffeine, and they would still fall asleep 2 to 3 hours after waking up, which is exactly what I was experiencing. So under the supervision of my prescribing physician, I tapered off. I was at 20 milligrams of Lexapro, which is, like I said, also called escitalopram, every day. And in 4 weeks, I was completely off of it. During the taper process, I had no issues other than some like manageable mild vertigo, which is a common side effect or withdrawal effect when you come off antidepressants. So I would go 20 milligrams every day to alternating 10 and 20, wait a few days to see if that was problematic. And then when it wasn't, I went down to 10 milligrams every day and then stayed there for a few days to see if there were any issues there. And then I went down to 10 and alternated with 10 milligrams and 5 milligrams every other day. And then I would do 5 every day. And then I went to nothing. And each day I spent, each dose I probably spent like 5 or 6 days at, just to make sure nothing was going to go poorly. In hindsight, I now know that was way, 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 way too fast of a taper. So I've done a lot of research on it since then because, it was basically ruining my life. So I spent any amount of productive brain power I had trying to figure out what was wrong with me and how to fix it. And yeah, that was basically the reason that I have felt so shitty for the last year, is because I tapered off way too quickly. So at first I was feeling a little bit better. I had a slightly more energy. I could think a little bit more clearly. I could train a little bit harder without feeling completely wrecked. But then I got hit with almost the same symptoms that I had before, except even worse. I went into the deepest pit of what I can only call depression, and I was arguably even more tired than before. Like I had borderline narcolepsy, still kind of do. I would just fall asleep all over the place. Like I said, coffee, caffeine wouldn't work at all. I could literally pound a massive amount of caffeine. It would just make my heart beat faster, but I would still be falling asleep. My energy levels were just so random. 1 minute they'd be okay. They were never good. But I'd be able to do normal tasks like without too much of a challenge. I could function. And the next minute, or the next like couple hours later or the next day or whatever, it was like I hadn't slept for days and my whole body would feel extremely heavy and I would just fall asleep. I'd never even been a big nap person before that. Like I've just never really been a big napper. I prefer to, I just feel better when I'm doing things and being productive. I'm definitely a more high functioning individual. But yeah, it was just like, I would have to clench my teeth to do like the most basic of tasks because everything was such a struggle. And this is also just on top of like not caring about anything, not enjoying anything, not being able to think a fucking thought. Like I was just so out of it. So that being on top of being exhausted and just my body feeling so heavy, I was like, life was very difficult. I was just doing things out of basically the little bit of discipline that I had at the time, just doing things that I know needed to be done because otherwise I know my life would just be worse. But yeah, it was fucking shit. The depression, the brain fog was constant too. Like I don't want to, I know some people do milk it and I don't really want to come across like I'm trying to make it out to be super corny and shit, but like I was really fucked up. I couldn't think through the most basic of tasks. And like I said, I just didn't care about anything. Emptying the dishwasher, going to the grocery store were like massive tasks for me. It was all I could do. And like if I had to go to the grocery store that day, there was like nothing else that I could do that day because it would take me so long to work up the mental energy to do it. And then once I was done, I was so tired from doing that. It was messed up. So my content and work obviously took a huge hit too. Like that, I stopped posting as often. I dropped my client roster down to the most manageable possible amount, so I could still pay my bills, that kind of thing. And this garbage existence lasted for months. My friends and family can attest to how messed up I was. So SSRI withdrawal is only officially supposed to last 3 to 6 weeks. So I thought it couldn't be that. And I was panicking that this is just how I was as a person. And I was basically stuck between being like this or being extremely tired by taking medication that fixed it. But basically it was just shit versus shit. So neither option was great. Then I did some more digging and I came across this article written by the admin of a website called survivingantidepressants.org, which I will put in the description below. And I realized that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are struggling with what is called protracted withdrawal from antidepressants, which include SSRIs, SNRIs, and other psychoactive medication, like for bipolar disorder or antipsychotics, like things like that, benzos. It's also called post-acute withdrawal syndrome, or PAWS, P-A-W-S, which is often used in the context of opiates when opiate users withdraw from them. So survivingantidepressants.org is a forum site where people can discuss their symptoms and get help and support from other people who are dealing with the same shit and or have gone through it. So it's not, peer-reviewed data or anything like that, but it is the best source we have of evidence and knowledge surrounding the phenomenon, at least that I've been able to find. So I actually realized that I had it easy compared to some of these people. Some of these people were still dealing with symptoms more than a decade after getting off these drugs. And some people had symptoms way worse than mine, like constant vertigo where they couldn't even stand up, brain zaps that were physically painful, insomnia, paranoia, psychosis, burning sensations all over the body, extreme digestion problems, suicidality, hallucinations, like you fucking name it. These people were fucked up. So I actually had it pretty good. These people are like, were losing their jobs and families and relationships because of this shit, but also weren't realizing, you know, no one ever told them that this was a possibility, and they didn't probably, before they found that website, they probably didn't even know that what was going on. Just kind of a similar situation that I was in. So I realized that because I'd never had depression problems before, my symptoms were more than likely protracted withdrawal, and it was just my nervous system recovering from being taken off of these drugs too fast. Like I said, tapering off too fast is like a huge no-no. So basically when you take these drugs, they have profound effects on the nervous system, and if you come off them too quickly, the nervous system doesn't really have time to recalibrate, for lack of a better term, and it's extremely dysregulated. And this is called dysautonomia, which just means nervous system dysfunction or dysregulation. It takes a very, very, very long time to fix for some people. It tends to depend on the person. I know some people who have cold turkeyed their antidepressants and have had no issues. Other people, you know, other people would take a year to come off and be messed up for longer than I will be. So it takes a very long time to fix, and basically from what I've seen, time is the only thing that fixes it. So you can do some things to manage symptoms, but everybody's, you know, different things work for different people. Unfortunately, I didn't find anything worked for me, but it will be fixed. It will fix itself. It just requires time, which sucks because, you know, when we're talking in the span of like multiple years here and you feel that bad, it's not a fucking good experience, to be diplomatic about it. You literally just have to suffer and trust the process that you will eventually heal with time, because you will. It's just a matter of time. No one can tell you how long. It's been observed anecdotally amongst people going through this shit that the recovery process usually follows a windows and waves pattern. So windows are periods of time where symptoms lessen and get a little bit better. So there's kind of a window where a window of clarity, for example, we might say. And waves are periods of time where there's a wave of bad symptoms, right? So initially the windows are small and few and far between. So for mine, I didn't even have my first window until like, I don't know, 4 months after I came off the medication, and it was for like a couple days. Initially, the windows are small and few and far between. Yeah, and life is basically just a constant wave, which was the first few months for me, like I just said. And man, that was fucking brutal. If I knew it was going to be like that forever, I probably would have just quit, if you know what I mean. But over time, and you know, reading that website and figuring out that I was not alone and that there was hope, I just toughed it out, you know what I mean? And over time, the windows haven't gotten a bit larger, and they have gotten a bit better, and they have become a little bit more frequent, and the waves aren't as bad. And I can function better during the waves, and they get shorter, and they happen less frequently. Although in experience, it hasn't quite followed the windows and waves pattern. It sometimes is really, really, really fucking random, and that's still the way it is for me. There's really no rhyme or reason. The one thing that I can say for sure does trigger a wave for me is drinking alcohol. So I've drank alcohol twice in the last, I don't know, like 12 months probably, maybe 10 months. And both times was quite bad. I'll talk a little bit about that more in a sec. Yeah, so certain things can trigger waves too. Like for me, I went out and got shit-faced with my buddies in December because my buddy was home visiting for the holidays, and I've been struggling a lot. So when they said, let's go out and have some fun, I said, fuck it. I don't even care anymore. Fuck it. That's literally what I said. Literally, that's what I said. Anyway, I was really fucked up for weeks after that. I basically slept through the entire Christmas holiday. You know, I just was mangled after that experience. So anything where you really stress the nervous system, which alcohol does, obviously it's fucking poisonous, seems to have potential to trigger a wave. Some people get waves from drinking caffeine or exercising too hard or dealing with a lot of significant life stress. I can't really attest to that. Caffeine doesn't really seem to have a bad effect on me. Sometimes it just doesn't work at all, but it doesn't seem to trigger a wave. Same with exercising too hard, but obviously for me, I don't really have a choice. I can't stop exercising and just watch my physique waste away. I would lose basically my entire career. Anyway, I'm doing a lot better now. I would say I'm probably 50% recovered. I definitely still have some really bad days where I don't enjoy anything, I don't care about anything, and I'll struggle with brain fog and energy more than what I know is normal for anybody, but especially myself, because usually I'm pretty dialed and kind of on the ball with stuff. I only really feel like working out probably once every 20 workouts. And that's coming from somebody who absolutely has loved training for years. You know, I'm on year 11 of training now. But at least now I don't despise every single workout. Some of them I still despise. Some of them are just, you go through the motions. And like I said, one in every 20 I like enjoy a little bit. But man, for all of last summer, all of last fall, all of last winter, it wasn't until the spring that I didn't fucking hate every second that I was in the gym, every rep, every set. It was the biggest test of mental fortitude I have ever had to go through. The way that I would describe it is like you megadose melatonin before you go to the gym or before you like do anything. Like imagine waking up and megadosing melatonin. That's what my life was like. Not good. yeah, I do feel like I lost a couple years of my life because obviously, like I said, before I came off the medication for about a year, I was really starting to experience that fatigue and stuff as well, and the depression and apathy and stuff. But it is what it is. I can't do anything about it now except try to enjoy it and move forward. You know, such is life. Life's not fair, and we were dealt some, everyone's dealt shitty cards. Obviously, because I'm feeling a little bit better, I'm able to think about it a little bit more positively. But so just want to discuss a few different things now. The first being that you shouldn't be scared if you're currently taking SSRIs or any other type of psychiatric medication. This is not medical advice, obviously. I already said that I'm not a doctor, but I'm just a science-based gym bro. But if you're not having any issues with it, then you can probably just keep taking it. I only came off of mine because I was starting to have issues with it. If you are having some issues with it and you want to get off, that's fine too. You can basically avoid all these negative symptoms that I've just talked about by just being very, 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 very slow with your taper under the supervision of your doctor. Although a lot of doctors don't really know shit about antidepressants, so keep that in mind. And by doctors, I mean GPs. And that's not really their fault. At least here in Canada, GPs are extremely overworked. They have to be a jack of all trades. They don't really have a lot of time to be, doing continued education on stuff like that. I'm just, cutting them a little bit of slack. I certainly don't blame my doctor. I mean, it's not his fault. They say a good rule of thumb to reduce when you're coming off your medication, if you do decide to do that, is to reduce your dose by 5 to 10% of your current dose each time and spend a month at each dose, or at least until there are no adverse symptoms for several weeks, whichever is longer. So if you're on 100 milligrams, then a 10% drop would bring you to 90 milligrams. And like I said, 5 to 10% drop, doesn't have to be 10. And then you'd bring yourself down to 90 milligrams, and then you spend about a month there. And then if there's no issues, you know what I mean, whichever is longer, as I said before, either until there are no adverse symptoms or you just spend a month there just for the sake of being safe. Spend about a month there, then you 10% drop off of 90, which would bring you to 81 milligrams, because that's a 9 milligram drop, right? This is called a hyperbolic taper. And then you spend, another month there, or at least wait until adverse symptoms stop, and then spend a couple of more weeks just to be safe. And then you go on and so forth. You get the idea. There are lots of resources on this stuff out there now too, like the survivingantidepressants.com or .org website that I will have linked in the description. There's also a YouTube channel by a licensed psychiatrist about this stuff too. I watched a couple of his videos. He seems to be one of the only people that's actively working for this. I think people kind of come to him from all around the US for help with that. I will put his channel in the description as well. There's more and more research being done on protracted withdrawal from SSRIs, antidepressants, and other psychiatric meds now that it's officially recognized as a diagnosable psychiatric psychological condition. And I think that's good because we absolutely do not understand all the different mechanisms of action for these drugs. And the different pathways that they affect. Like I said, they profoundly affect the nervous system, and the nervous system basically controls everything. The nervous system it's like the motherboard of your body. I mean, the nervous system is everything, at least in terms of how we experience life, because that's how we perceive everything through the nervous system, right? So the main thing is that if you're going through this kind of bullshit, and I really just hope if you've gotten this far in the video, that's great. Just keep in mind that it does get better. You have to have faith that it does get better, and that tons of other people are going through it too. I mean, I would put this on my Instagram story, and I had so many people respond and be like, yo, I just started doing this, I'm feeling the same thing, or man, I went through that last year, like just tough it out, you'll be okay. Like people would ask questions, they would be on their SSRI, their medication, and they'd be like, yo, like I'm not really sure about it. So many people, I think they're literally the most prescribed drug in the United States at this point is antidepressants. I think. That might be wrong, but it's definitely up there. So you can imagine how many people would be going through this, because some people don't know, they're not educated, and they just stop taking it, which is the worst fucking thing you could do if you're one of the people who's going to react negatively to it. So just trust me that you're not alone. If you have any questions or comments, fire them into my DMs on my Instagram or in the comments on this video, and I will definitely respond. I just wanted to make this video to kind of help everybody just not feel alone and be educated on a little bit. You try to kind of basically consolidate all the information that I have learned from my time trying to figure out what the fuck was wrong with me. Even somebody like me who seems to have a pretty awesome life from the outside was going through this fucking shit, and it was unpleasant. Like my life on paper is fucking phenomenal, and I'm so grateful for it. I have a great income, I do something I love, I get to train, I've got great friends, great family, I have a nice place that I live, like I have 2 motorcycles, like I'm in a fucking phenomenal place. And yet I hated my life and couldn't enjoy a fucking single minute of it for a long time. So do your best to go and do your best to get help and to help yourself. Although I know it can seem insurmountable at times, trust me. Like I said, emptying the dishwasher was a fucking task. But it is worth it. Just put one foot in front of the other, one day at a time. That's literally all you can do. Make use of resources like the website that I mentioned and stick it out. It's worth it. I remember watching videos of people who had recovered talking about how they had just, you know, they were enjoying just going to cafes again and going for walks, like just doing the little things. And I couldn't fathom enjoying doing anything ever again. And yet here I am. Like I said, I still have shitty days sometimes, but generally I have noticed an improvement. Like it's slow, but if I compare this time right now to this time last year, a very obvious difference, like no question. So yeah, that is basically kind of, I just wanted to give you guys an update. That's what I've been going through. Like I said, I still have really good and bad days. Yesterday was a shitty day. I had to take a nap in the middle of the day after drinking 2 coffees. Today is a good day. Today I, you know, have been able to be productive. I'm in a good mood. I've got some energy. Right now I seem to be kind of on like a day on, day off type of cycle, which is great because for a long time it was like 1 day every month I felt even remotely okay. So yeah, I've still got a ways to go, but that's also kind of been why I haven't been posting a lot of YouTube videos recently. The England trip was a fucking gong show, and it took us a long time to get back on our feet. My video guy specifically, just because he had so much work backed up, and he doesn't make that much money off of my videos, so he was prioritizing other clients, which is totally understandable. And yeah, it took us a long time to get those videos out. Those videos did horrendously as well, which kind of really discouraged me from doing YouTube. I'm not done doing YouTube, absolutely not. I just wasn't feeling very good after coming back from England the last couple of months. So I was just kind of, you know, doing the bare minimum to survive kind of thing, just focusing on the easier stuff that comes a little bit more naturally, like the Instagram posts. And obviously I'm a coach before anything, so taking care of my clients, that kind of stuff. But yeah, that is the update. I just wanted to give you guys some insight. Obviously I should add the caveat, there is a possibility that I am wrong in my theory and maybe I actually do have something else. You know, we'll know in a year or two, I guess. But as of right now, everything seems to be consistent with the notion that the original reason I was feeling so shitty while I was taking the medication is because of that seemingly uncommon but notable side effect of Lexapro, which is the chronic fatigue. And then after I got off the medication, it was protracted withdrawal. Yeah, I mean, nothing else really fits that role in terms of like pieces of the puzzle, as well as protracted withdrawal. So I expect to continue to improve in terms of my energy level and output. You know, mental clarity, mood, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if I already said mood, and yeah, I will, you know, generally provide updates if people are asking. But yeah, this is, you know, obviously not a video that I like. This isn't really like my typical video, you know what I mean? Usually I'm talking about working out. But, you know, this might help a ton of people. Hopefully it kind of reaches some new eyes. And yeah, I have no problem talking about this kind of thing. Like anybody who thinks that like I'm a pussy, for example, just doesn't know what they're talking about. You know, I look at mental health problems the same way I look at like a broken bone. You know what I mean? It's just a physiological issue for the most part. Obviously, there's lots of people who suffer from depression because they don't do anything to help themselves. And I don't really consider that to be quite the same thing. You never know what someone's going through. And even people like me who seem to have everything or seem to be in a great spot, they're all still struggling. Some of them are still struggling with things as well. And I don't have any issue talking about it because I don't really give a fuck what other people think. So this video benefits other people more than it would benefit me to not make, if you know what I mean. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. We should be back in the YouTube grind in the coming days. And yeah, as long as my energy and mood stays good enough to be entertaining in a video, because nobody obviously wants to watch a video of a guy who's fucking droning on and being depressed, then yeah, the YouTube videos will keep coming. So thank you very much for watching. I hope this video helped you, and I will see you guys in the next one.